Welcome to the Invisible Marketer Podcast. I'm your host, Coena, and in this episode, I sit down with Tony Allen. Now, his story is so inspiring. He has struggled for years with dyslexia, but there was something that happened when he was 12 years old that really turned things around for him. In this episode, Tony talks about the milestone moments that have shaped his journey. He talks about his struggles and being an introvert and how he has turned that around so that he can go out and share his message with other parents. To access today's show notes and to see where you can go to follow Tony on his journey, please visit invisiblemarketer.com/Tony. Let's dive on in.
Bond, James Bond. Those words that the actor Sean Connery had said on the screen changed my life. I didn't know that they would change my life at that point, but they did. It was a bright summer warm day by the community pool when I was 12 years old, and I was visioning my future. I had a choice of which path I was going to take, either one going to college or one not so good. And as a result of that choice, I decided to go to college. But I also asked myself, what else do I like? And so as a result of that, I asked my dad if there were any books that were written by, that were on James Bond. And he said, Ian Fleming. So we went to the bookstore the very next day, and I got the 10 paperback books, and I sat down by the pool and read those for the summer. And that changed the direction of my life because I was struggling with reading there as 12 years old in elementary school. I didn't like to read, and it was very hard. At the time, I didn't know that I was dyslexic, mildly dyslexic. And for those parents who don't know what that is, it's essentially how the brain processes words on the page, and that is they have a tendency to get scrambled. It isn't anything wrong there on the page, it's how our brains are wired and processing that information, and it causes that confusion. It causes the letter to switch places and stuff, which makes reading very hard and struggle. And it also causes some emotional pain as well. Have your kids ever come home and said to you that they didn't want to read, they don't like to read, and you're arguing with your kids about their reading? Your kids may actually be dyslexic. That's one of the kind of the sign that they don't like to read at all.
So my son, he has struggles with reading, and my daughter as well. Whenever you first had mentioned that's what you do and when that's what you're passionate about, I started following you because I'm like, this makes sense. I have learned so much since following you and since I've met you about this, and it just all makes sense now, more so than it did back then because we had no idea. I don't know that it was properly diagnosed.
Often it isn't. I'm from the child of the 60s. I went to school there back in the 60s, and it was just beginning to become recognized. But the teachers did not have any formal training, so they did not recognize that the kids then actually had dyslexia. And it's actually quite prevalent. It's roughly about 1 out of 5 children. About 20% of the U.S. population has some form of dyslexia, from mild to a little bit more severe. And the good news is that parents, it's not your fault. And that is that somewhere along your genetic line, it actually got passed on. So if you yourself have had struggles there with reading, know that, no, you're not stupid, you're not dumb or anything. It is just literally how your brain interprets and processes those words on the page. And it is still a struggle. I still read stories there on Facebook about parents still struggling with it. I myself still do. My spelling is not perfect, and my grammar is not perfect. So I can tell you that, thank goodness, that there's spell checker and there's Grammarly now, the software to help out with those things. But at that time when I was younger, it wasn't. So it did impact me academically, and it certainly also impacted me socially as well, which caused me to be much more inverted, introvert, those type of struggles. If you notice, your children are not as extroverted introverted or seem as happy and is struggling there in school, and they're a little bit more reserved or shy. Could also be added to dyslexia, plus also their personality of being introverted.
In a perfect world, let's talk about what would your vision be as far as getting your message out there?
My message there to the parents would be that, one, it's not your fault. Second message is that this is something that can be overcome. It's always going to be a lifelong pattern. As I have said, that I struggle with spelling. I still misspell words, but thank goodness for spell checker and Grammarly for catching my grammatical errors. So there are tools now that can help your child with grammar, with spelling, and so there's less emphasis on memorization. But this is the one thing I do want to say, and that is that how we actually learn is through reading. That's how we transfer knowledge from one generation to the next generation, and that's how knowledge gets accumulated. And whether it's being in books or whether it's there on computers, on websites, etc., you still need that lifelong skill set of being able to read. So I would like to present the strategy to the parents that I developed when I was 12 years old to overcome my dislike and struggle with reading.
That's just amazing. I honestly am so amazed and inspired by your story and what your message is that you're trying to get out there. Because as a mom of a kid that I fully believe was dyslexic, and the struggles and the tears that we've spent because she had so much trouble with it.
You as a parent, you've seen her the emotional pain, and as a parent, you have felt that pain as well. Why isn't my child getting this? What am I doing wrong? How can I help?
Yeah, she could not read until she was in third grade, I believe. And you're supposed to read in first grade. So she was very far behind. We were able to get her in therapy and stuff. By the end of it, she still, even as an adult, has problems understanding comprehension, but she's a medical student now. And that's one of the hardest fields that you can go into, especially if you're a slower learner.
Absolutely. And definitely kudos for her for persevering and going through that. I know myself, I did. I wound up getting a math and econ degree there and becoming a computer programmer later on and having a successful professional life there. So I do want to encourage your parents that, yes, your kids can indeed go on and overcome and have a very successful professional career. Or if they're going into trade school, yes, they can also do that as well. So it isn't something so bad, but it's still there. And on the downside, and that is, don't know the exact percentage, often a lot of are going into prisons and are dyslexic because they haven't properly trained, overcome their reading, and so that's the downside potentially. Not to warn your kids, not to warn your parents, but
I know we talked about it, but you said that having dyslexia, you felt more of an introverted. Is there anything that helped you to overcome, especially with your business and marketing and being able to meet people and network with people? Has that held you back?
Yeah, certainly. My personality is just generally more introverted. So I had a hearing loss when I was younger, and so that's certainly added to the situation. I will personally give you when I was much younger, and it still shows up here later, although recently in the last 12 years or so I've had hearing aids, which has helped a great deal. So if your children are hearing impaired, I highly recommend investing in hearing aids. That it will help them socially. It will help them with the outside world, not to feel as alone and isolated and everything. And so that was one of the things that definitely helped with being introverted. Just in terms of being interested in some other different topics. When I was younger, of course, I was interested in sports, basketball. I was playing basketball, so that helped socially wise in terms of not being quite as introverted. I still am. I still consider myself introverted. It's always a challenge here.
Oh, I know that all too well. I feel like you've come a long way. Like you're on here with me and sharing your story, and I see even if it's written posts, some people don't even want to get out there and write a post on social media. And I definitely get it because I was the same way. For you to be able to do that and want to get your message out there, I think you're doing a great job.
Say that yes, it was a challenge for me to simply do the posting there on Facebook, coming up with the topic and doing the posting, everything. And I just said, I'm just going to do them, whether people read them or not. You got to do it. You got to start somewhere. Fortunately, some people came along and liked it, which gives you encouragement to continue. And so now here's the next kind of medium. So thank you, Helena, for doing this, for encouraging my message here on your broadcast and everything. So thank you.
I just know that I feel like your message is much needed, and it's like your superpower. You've went through this, the struggles of what you went through, and you can go out and help families and help moms and help kids to actually be able to cope with this better. So I feel like it is a much needed message to be sent, and I hope that I can inspire you and we can inspire each other to go out there and don't stop sharing and keep going.
Absolutely, to encourage each other. And you've done a wonderful job with your introvert here, overcoming the Zoom calls, the podcast, and talking to each other like we're talking there in person. And the other topic I'm going to say to introverts, and that is that if you have a specific topic to talk about, that helps a great deal and everything. As with us introverts, I feel that we're much more, I'm going to say, process oriented. And that is that we are a little bit more quieter, we observe things, and then we kind of process information. But then when we do want to speak, I think our thoughts are a little bit more coherent on certain topics, and we have certain kind of very strong kind of opinions there. They're not all over the place. There is good strength of being an introvert.
There is. I've learned this the last 2 months. We have so many strengths as introverts, and that is part of why I wanted to do this podcast, because I want to help all introverts embrace their strengths, because we do have strengths. You are so right about when you're talking about a topic that you know a lot about and you have that confidence and you know it and you love it. Introverts shine. You could talk about it all day long. You overcome your fears, and the purpose is greater than the fear in that case. I feel like that's a goal that I have, is to help people find what that is. What is their superpower? What is their one topic? What is their one talent that they're so passionate about that it can help them gain that courage and confidence to go out there and take that first step like you did when you started posting for this written challenge. That's my thought process and what I want to do in my business as a whole.
One of the great marketers that everybody will recognize, and that is that if you have an iPhone, you know who I'm talking about, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
He was not only an introvert, but also a dyslexic as well. And the other person who's also responsible for that for the iPhone is Johnny Ives. He was the one that actually designed the iPhones and the Macs and the iMacs and everything. And he himself was also a dyslexic.
Yeah.
And just also want to encourage your parents that there are several other well-known dyslexics, just to help encourage that your kids can grow and become very successful. I'll just rattle off a few of them, many of the names hopefully you'll recognize. Albert Einstein, Walt Disney, Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, Charles Schwab, and there's many different also actors as well that also have dyslexia. Henry Winkler, who played the character Fonzie on Happy Days. And then there have been many dyslexics throughout history. Leonardo da Vinci was also dyslexic.
Wow. You're dropping some big names. That's for sure.
To encourage that your kids, even though they might be dyslexic, that they can have a successful life. These are just some of the people that have used their dyslexic skills and gifts to change around and persevere through and contribute to things, to society, to life. So I want to give your parents that encouragement, not give up.
I do have to ask, is there a milestone moment in your journey that shaped the direction of your life?
As with anybody's life, if you look back and reflect on, you can see some pivotal moments within your life. Certainly one of mine is, of course, when I was there 12 years old, that summer day, when I changed the direction of my life. At that time, I didn't know it, but reflecting back on it, I can now see that was a pivotal point in changing my life. There have been many other types of pivotal points here. The reason reason why I came up, in fact, with wanting to do this 3-day reading challenge platform here to help dyslexic kids and also non-dyslexic kids with homeschool parents was that this past summer marked exactly 50 years ago that I myself changed my path. And so I wanted to encourage other parents there that they can change their kids' future.
I've honestly enjoyed sitting down with you. I could do this all day, honestly, because I'm just so inspired by your story and I relate to it so much because I know the pain. Where can my audience find you? Can they follow you on Facebook? Do you have a website?
Got it. Right now, I only have a Facebook page, and that's for my 3-day reading challenge with dyslexic. It's where I'm posting stuff, and we'll be posting my future challenge dates there for my 3-day challenge dates. And it's exactly called the 3-day reading challenge for dyslexic children from struggle to enjoyment. And while I'm here for homeschool parents, but in general, it's for parents, specifically for children ages 8 to 12, because I feel that's a critical time point in your child's life. And that certainly was mine for me. When I was 8 to 12 years old, that was my time when I was struggling there in school and didn't like writing and reading and all that. I enjoyed math, but not reading so much. That's where you currently can find me.
Tony, it has been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you. Is there any final words or anything that you would like to say to my audience?
Don't give up, be persistent. That's one of the traits here that us dyslexics have, and that we are smart, we are intelligent. It's how our brains just process information differently than others. We're more right-brained as opposed to left-brained. That's one of the traits there of being dyslexic. It's how literally our brains have been wired, and that there's nothing wrong with it.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you found value from my conversation with Tony, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our next episode. To access today's show notes and to see where you can follow Tony on his journey, please visit invisiblemarketer.com/Tony. As always, keep tuning in to discover even more strategies that are tailored to using your superpower of being an introvert to go out and make an impact. I will see you next time.